Along with pretty much every other owner of a PS4, I think by this point, I have played through the Final Fantasy VII Remake demo. And like many of you, I absolutely loved it. It was a blast to play, and I can't wait to get my hands on the game when it is released in just a few weeks' time.
Get down here, Merc.
That said, there is one feature that did not function exactly as I expected it to, but I think that's not necessarily a bad thing. Well, perhaps maybe it is, I haven't decided yet. I'm referring to the classic combat mode that can be activated either at the start of the demo or at any point from the main menu during the course of the adventure. This classic mode was originally announced back in September last year, and it has been marketed by Square towards the audience niche that prefers a traditional RPG turn-based battle system in contrast to the action-oriented elements of the remake's other difficulty modes. The sad news though is that what we actually have is not really what was described to us. As many regulars to my channel will know, I am personally a big fan of those JRPGs that use more traditional turn-based battle systems. But here's the thing, having now spent quite a bit of time playing with and testing out the classic difficulty in the Final Fantasy VII Remake demo, it really doesn't harken me back, if I'm honest, to those turn-based mechanics at all. In fact, it is pretty clear to me, having played through the demo multiple times now, that the remake's engine is simply not intended for turn-based combat, and any true attempt to implement such a feature is probably just going to end in failure. The game just simply wasn't built for it. Now, that doesn't mean that the classic mode is useless, I just believe it's been marketed poorly, because, in fact, it does actually fulfill a completely different function quite well.
Yeah, let's do this. Let's do this.
Now, I do understand that some of you watching this video have already mastered the demo and are already calling for harder difficulties for the full release. I'm going to advise those of you in this camp that you will probably be better off never actually touching classic mode at all, as you're going to be sorely disappointed if you do. I'm sorry to say the reality of the situation is that classic mode hasn't been designed for you, and I think this is where the failure in marketing really comes into play. You see, speaking generally, the actual combat mechanics of the remake on normal and even easy difficulty can take some practice to really get a good grasp of. And no doubt there is going to be a section of the audience who probably don't have much experience with action-based combat and will probably be playing the game because they are fans of the original FF7. Or maybe fans of the original game would like the non-gamers in their circles to try the remake in order to get a taste of the joy that they themselves felt from times past. And what classic mode is going to do is drastically reduce the barrier of entry that would otherwise put off this particular part of the audience. And for all we know, this could be a substantial number. There are members of my own family who simply do not game, and yet I'm going to try and introduce them to the wonderful world of Final Fantasy VII through the remake. And I think classic mode will be the perfect opportunity to do that. What it does is take the easy difficulty, where enemy health and damage is reduced, and then couples that with an auto battle feature where the AI will effectively play for you during battle. For most of the battles in the demo, with exception of the boss, you can literally just place the controller down and the game will do absolutely everything necessary to get you through combat safely. Not only will your party members attack, but they will also move around the battlefield and even block damage too. The only thing that the AI won't take care of in classic mode is healing, because that's tied to the ATB commands. But this is easy difficulty, where healing is not really expected against standard enemy pools anyway. While the AI is controlling the party members in combat, players can then still issue commands if they wish to do so, perhaps to throw a lightning spell or unleash a limit break. But the stress has been completely taken out of the equation in making on-the-fly decisions. If you cast the wrong ability, it doesn't really matter, there's very little consequence because your party will still continue to plough through the encounter successfully. And if these descriptions that I'm giving you make it sound like classic mode is just completely useless, then again, you're probably just not part of the audience that it was intended for. And I just really wish Square had made that clear from the get-go.
Pity no one else at Command will talk to us, but what can you do? But
for those for whom it is intended, classic mode will allow that player to embrace and understand the ATB and command systems while not having to worry about the more intricate aspects of combat, such as evading attacks, for example. Then once the player understands these systems, they can simply change the difficulty mode to easy as they step up their practice. And then finally the player can move on to normal difficulty once they fully understand how all of these mechanics of combat function together.
Ha! You hear that? Damn thing showed you how it's done.
Come on, we've got to move.
Thus, in the context of a progression system, I really believe that classic mode does have a place. Sure, as I say, most of you watching this video probably will never need it, but I'm also certain there will be those who find it an absolute blessing. It's just a shame that Square didn't reveal it in this way, and now a few have been left disappointed, I think, because they actually can't experience the remake with a turn-based feel as perhaps they were originally led to believe they would be able to. So as an actual gameplay feature, it's great. The way it was marketed, perhaps not so great. But what do you folks think of Classic Mode? Is it a difficulty that you will find helpful, either for yourself or for when introducing others into the world of Final Fantasy VII? Please do share your thoughts in the comments. Now, going forward, I do have plans to cover, well, every aspect of the Final Fantasy VII Remake, including a full walkthrough of the full game once we finally have our hands on it. So please do stay tuned to the channel, have a pleasant day, and I will see you next time.